Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.
I feel so good, I feel so numb, yeah.
Greetings, degenerates! It is I, Knox Burzum, your undead guide to the bizarre, dark, and strange. I am a great lover of science fiction, and here on Enter the Void, I wanted to give you a whole plethora of things to watch. So, I have seen most of Sir Ridley Scott's movies. Knowing that there's an important sequel coming out later this year, I felt it poignant to talk about his favorite movie he's ever made. I give you Blade Runner. When Blade Runner premiered in 1982, Harrison Ford commented that it was a movie about whether or not you could have a romantic relationship with your toaster. I personally completely disagree with this. The movie is more so a masterpiece about questioning the intelligence of becoming a creation god. The appliance in this case being the replicant Rachel, portrayed by the gorgeous Sean Young. And as Mr. Ford found out, yes, you can have a relationship with that appliance, as long as you know how to turn it on. The eyeball-popping thriller was director Ridley Scott's first American film, a box office disappointment, lost on audiences appalled by the British cinematographer's glowering, smoggy portrait of the future. One of the problems with the theatrical release, which amazingly none of the 3 copies I own contains, is the drone of Ford's voice-over narration and the upbeat Hollywood ending. For this review, we'll be focusing on the final cut, which the director has cited as his favorite version of the film, in which he has deleted the voiceover from the final product as it was against both him and Ford's wishes, as well as the tacked-on shit-cake upbeat Hollywood ending. And what we're left with is a nice, taut sci-fi thriller. Score! Actually, interesting side note. While doing research for this episode, my wife managed to find the original theatrical release of this movie on YouTube, including Harrison Ford's voiceover narration. I'd never heard this before, by the way. It is majestic! And by majestic, I mean it sounds like he got stoned right before walking into the sound booth, right off lines we'd never seen before, and before asking the sound guy if he could do a second take, the guy's like, cut, print, edit, and publish. Just saying, it sounds like shit. Scott, a provocative visual stylist, brought terms like cyberpunk and retrofitting into the American vocabulary with his visually decadent, stylistically overloaded portrait of Los Angeles as it might appear in 2019. Dark, damp, diverse, desperate, overbearingly amazing. The screenplay, written by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, is far removed from its source material in Philip K. Dick's original Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which I of course encourage anyone who enjoys this film as much as I do to seek out and read. It's an amazing story. However, don't be expecting the same storyline as is in the film. While the film mostly focuses on Deckard, a retired cop, who hunts down replicants and shoots them to death for pretending to be human, the book more focuses on a genetic engineer by the name of J.R. Sebastian. J.F. Sebastian, I don't know. I tell you later on in the story anyway. Any rate, in the film he is portrayed by William J. Anderson. Stronger and more specialized than real people, the replicants are sent off-world to be laborers, militants, prostitutes, basically anything we don't want real people to have to suffer and do anymore. No, there's no subtle social commentary going on here at all. Wink, wink. The movie starts off with a Blade Runner named Holden administering the Voight-Kampff test, designed to distinguish replicants from humans based on their emotional response to questions. The test subject, Leon, shoots Holden after he asks about Leon's mother. Shortly after, we're introduced to Han Solo, who is playing Deckard, Blade Runner extraordinaire.
who is sitting down to a tasty bowl of genetically modified noodles. He's approached by Ever James Almost Corpse, who's doing his best impersonation of a real boy, and told that his former boss, Bryant, wants to speak to him. It is interesting to note the sheer scale of the world we're still being introduced to at this point. Ridley Scott credits Edward Hopper's painting Nighthawks and the French science fiction comic magazine Heavy Metal, to which the artist Jean Girard, aka Mobius, contributed to heavily as stylistic mood sources for the movie.
Also drew inspiration from Hong Kong on a bad day, as well as the industrial landscape of his one-time home in northeast England.
M. Emmett Walsh, whom I swear to the gods has never been younger than 65, is playing Bryant, who wants Deckard to retire Leon and the other three replicants, Roy Batty, Zora, and every cyberpunk boy's wet dream ever, Pris. The four replicants have come back to Earth after stealing a ship and murdering the entire crew. Classy. They have come back as their leader, Roy Batty, played by the phenomenally creepy Rutger Hauer, explains, to meet their maker, the elusive daughter, Eldon Tyrell, played by Joe Turkel. To keep them from supplanting the men who made them, you see, replicants have a built-in failsafe, a 4-year lifespan, and they've decided to take this up with the man upstairs. The next scene introduces us to the immaculate Rachel, portrayed by Sean Young, wearing enough black to get any goth hard. We're also introduced to Tyrell himself, who looks like a likely inspiration for Professor Farnsworth from Futurama, especially with the glasses roughly thick enough to see outer space through. At any rate, Deckard's here to question Tyrell about his Nexus 6 replicants, but Tyrell has other ideas, mostly misdirecting Deckard so he won't have to answer hard questions about the replicants. Deckard mentions the Void Conf test, and Tyrell asks him to subject Rachel to it so he can observe how it works. It of course turns out that Rachel is a replicant, but a very special one, who's been given the memories of Tyrell's niece, so she's a fully functional, nearly human being.
The most interesting feature of this scene isn't anything big and flashy, it's something small and subtle, but quite striking nonetheless. You see, there's a camera trick being created by putting a mirror above and in front of the characters on screen, or at least the ones playing replicants. This causes the eye shine that you see. The audience is the only ones who can see this, Ridley explained. It's supposed to be a subtle religious commentary, showing that while the replicants look human, they have no souls.
Finally, we're introduced to Roy, who is one creepy sadistic fucker. He and his fellow replicant Leon are off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Eyes. Again, there's a lot of references to things like this in the film, which is a part of why I've watched it over and over again, and still manage to find something new each time I do. Hannibal Chu, an elderly geneticist specializing in synthetic eyes, is approached and freaked the fuck out by Roy and Leon, the latter of whom stuffs his arm right up to the elbow into a beaker of liquid nitrogen, and then decides to drape eyeballs all over Chu's shoulders, just to show him some real love. Ugh, gross. Any rate, neat fact about this scene. While Ridley Scott is known to be an obsessive director, he actually was totally okay with the very first take of this scene. I guess Hannibal is always the best in show, whether it's Anthony Hopkins or James Hall. The next scene takes place in Deckard's apartment, which, interestingly enough, is actually a fully functional office building known as the Bradbury Building during the day. As part of the contract to get to film inside, the set crew actually had to set up and tear down the sets every day, because business would literally be taking place within hours of their leaving. Anyway, Rachel questions Deckard about her existence, because Tyrell now refuses to talk to her about the results of the Void Conf test which Deckard administered. And, well, she's not dumb. Part of the experiment that is her, quote-unquote, is that she's not been made aware that she is in fact a replicant. She fears what the implications may be to her existence, as I'm sure she's aware that the replicants have only a 4-year lifespan, and, after Deckard reveals to her that her memories are from Tyrell's niece, she has no real idea of how old she is, or therefore, how much longer she has left to live. What a sad state of affairs. Fuck. And now, for a change of pace, we meet up with the seductive android prostitute Pris, and the genius J.F. Sebastian.
During the filming of this scene, Daryl Hannah ran too quickly and ran straight on through the real glass window of the car parked on the street. This wasn't supposed to happen, but Ridley Scott felt they added a certain level of, realism to the movie, and left it in. Violence.
Any rate, Pris and Sebastian bullshit, and Pris flirts her way into his home. Here you see where the mad genius of the Tyrell Corporation lives. It's essentially a worn-out, half-broken down, defunct hotel. He even mentions to Pris that due to the super bad condition of the building, he is basically able to live there by himself, nearly rent-free. He does have, quote, friends who live with him. He, quote, makes his friends, as he puts it. Ugh, this guy is sad. The friends you see are basically Vern Troyer-sized animatronic dolls, with the IQ of a living eggplant. But who the hell am I to judge? I mean, as an undead, my standards aren't real high. But I am. We cut back to Deckard, dreaming of a unicorn, and again, I gotta stop things for a moment.
This scene has expanded upon the unicorn reference, which Ridley Scott says is to provoke doubt about Deckard's own essence. You see, he's just presented Rachel with the fact that she has the implanted memories from Tyrell's niece. She's not a real person. When she storms out of his house, this causes him to doubt himself, and he goes and looks through his old photo album. Apparently, the little origami animals that Lieutenant Gaff makes throughout the film, a chicken, a giraffe, and a unicorn, are also supposed to be references to Deckard's psyche. Personally, I don't really get it. I'll admit it.
Back to the story though. This is where Deckard finally gets a lead and is able to kind of figure out who the replicants are posing as via some really fancy photographic detective work.
Enhanced 224 to 176. Stop. Move in. Stop. Pull out track right. Stop. Enhance 34 to 36. Enhance 34 to 46. Stop. Enhance 57 to 19. Track 45 left. Stop. Enhance 15 to 23. Give me a hard copy right there. Fish?
And Gaff were skulking around in Leon's apartment, Enzo takes it to Chinatown to have it looked at by apparently a cart detective with a fucking electron microscope. God damn it, I love the future.
Funny fact here, by the way. While the scale is certainly what goes under the electron microscope, the image that we're shown is actually a marijuana bud blown up to scale. It's a little Easter egg inside of the movie, and I have to wonder if it's perhaps from Harrison Ford's personal stash. Him being a infamous Hollywood pothead, I have to wonder if it wasn't a little joke on Ridley Scott's part.
The guy takes a look at the flake for him, and it turns out it's a synthetic snake scale. There's only a couple places in the city which sell these synth snakes, so it's pretty easy for Deckard to figure out where to go to find the owner of the snake. I love that to find the right stripper, Deckard ends up going to a legit opium bar to get the final piece of info. That's something you won't see in modern cinema. Deckard hunts down Zora at one of the apparent 100 or so strip clubs in LA and poses, very haphazardly, as a representative from some performance rights union or some bullshit. Any rate, Zora gets in her birthday suit for a camera and bothers to take a shower and have a full conversation with Deckard. I'm not personally sure when she knew what was really going on, and I find it amusing that she bothers to shout her off, and she takes off running while wearing a leather brief, hooker shoes, and what I can only describe as a hook over the shoulders lingerie piece, with a transparent raincoat to top it all off. It's again interesting to note how many different societies are represented during the chase sequence. Everything from Far Eastern monks to LA cab drivers and anything in between that you can think of. Deckard is the best for a reason though, and manages to nail Zora with 2 shots in the back, and she makes a spectacular fall through a full hallway of windows. The shot actually had to be taken in one sequence due to some sort of budgeting and manpower issue. Leon spots Deckard at the crime scene, and from there on it's pretty safe to assume he starts stalking the man. Deckard goes to his boss and gets chewed out for the spectacle he's making of retiring the replicants, which ironically is of course what he was asked to do in the first goddamn place. When he leaves, Deckard manages to spot Rachel in the throng of humanity outside. He tries to make his way to her, only to be intercepted by the psychotic Leon.
I don't know. My birthday's April 10, 2017. How long do I live?
4 years.
More than you. Painful living fear, isn't it? Nothing is worse than having an itch you can never scratch.
Oh, I agree.
Wake up. Time to die.
Deckard and Rachel have a much-needed heart-to-heart about what Deckard's role is going to be going on in her life now that she knows that things can never go back to being the same as they were before. Deckard promises that he won't kill her regardless of what happens in the near future, due to the fact that he seems to have a soft spot for not killing non-violent replicants. And again, we have a scene where the first time around what you're watching is definitely the acting, but the second time around it is definitely the sets. Holy shit.
Everything here really makes it feel like you're in a real penthouse. Rachel settles in after Deckard drunkenly passes out, and we get a saucy, slow jazz piece with her letting her hair down. Arguably, this is one of the most sensuous parts of the film. Rachel then talks to Deckard once he wakes up from his drunken snooze and asks her more about her memories and what might be real and what is implanted. She's just finished playing the piano and explains her curiosity stemming from a new, deep, and disturbing possibility that her entire existence is a lie. She then tries to run from Deckard, maybe even her own desires, and her demons as well. Hard to say at this point. Either way, he pursues her and uses the power of the Force to get her to have sex with him. Oops, wrong movie.
Meanwhile, at Sebastian's place, Chris bemoans the fact that she'll be wilting like a violet soon. To make her feel better about this, JR explains to her why he is aging so quickly himself on the outside. Methuselah syndrome, as it turns out. This is a legitimate thing which causes his body to age prematurely. In fact, it's why he's still on Earth, and more than likely, why he's actually sympathetic to her plight. Then the bad news comes. Roy returns, letting Chris know that Leon and Zora are dead.
The next morning, while all three stooges hang out, Roy realizes that JF is in fact in constant contact with Dr. Tyrell, the mad genius who designed all of the Nexus 6s. He uses this to his advantage, and convinces JF that the two of them should go to Tyrell in person to meet. Note in this scene that when JF tries to command Pris to, quote, show him something, as if she's just a computer or a toy, to prove what she can do to him, she responds indignantly with, like what? I'm not a computer. Again, this just works to establish the degree of humanity contained in the concept of the Nexus 6 droid. Roy and JF head over to Tyrell's amazing Colossus, where Tyrell has made both his empire and his home. Fun fact, in real life, this thing was only 4 feet tall. Big man, big ego, tiny little living space. We now see Tyrell laying in an opulent 4-poster bed, in a set dressing that would give Martin Scorsese an erection. He lets Sebastian up to his room after JF beats him at chess. Roy is now introduced to Tyrell in the flesh, who basically admits he himself is only a mortal, and that even he is unable to give Roy a longer lifespan. In a fit of rage, he rips out Tyrell's eyes, and is inferred chases down JF, who meets a similar fate at Roy's murderous hands.
In the next part, Ridley Scott decides to lighten things up a bit with some lowbrow humor. As Deckard is sitting in his car, sipping on some ramen noodles, a gang of rogue, roving street midgets. Yes, rogue, roving street midgets. They attack his car, you see, and start ripping panels off, probably to sell for meth. This is Los Angeles, after all. Deckard's getting the intel and soon realizes that JF lives about 5 minutes away from where he currently is because of the normal intel that comes up with the Nexus 6 replicants. He decides to turn on his car, speeds away, and the midgets tumble off, literally. It's a bloody good time.
Pris plays mannequin till Deckard is just about to figure out that she's alive, and then goes complete crazy bitch on him. She isn't trying to play around, and wants the viewing audience to know exactly how bad she wants his ass dead. Deckard shoots her ass twice though, and she flops around like a carp out of water till she bleeds out from it. Roy arrives back at JF's right after Pris dies. He gives her a super creepy after-death kiss, and then runs around the floor evading Deckard like some sort of scared rabbit. Roy manages, however, to trick Deckard not long after this into coming right where he wants, and pulls Deckard's right arm through a wall to maim him. Roy has a small freak-out over Pris's dead body, and then pursues Deckard through the entire rotting building in a thrilling chase, one decaying floor at a time. A massive chase ensues, with Harrison Ford throwing himself all over the building exterior, like some sort of possessed marionette, all until Roy tracks him down, nearly dead on his own from aging as the Nexus 6, and, poetically enough, as daylight dawns, Roy finally succumbs to being an android with an expiration date. Deckard's partner somehow tracks him down and delivers an ominous message about Rachel. Ford heads back to his apartment to pick up Rachel, now convinced that his own department will track her down and kill her. Right at the end, Gaff's voice comes in one last time on a voiceover after we're shown the giraffe that he folded and left there just as a calling card.
It's too bad she won't live. But then again, who does?
To let us know that Gaff could already have taken Rachel out, and then they leave, creating one of the most well-earned cliffhangers in sci-fi history.
Oh, Dad, won't you spare me over another?